everybody, I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just want to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 7 of the Acolyte series. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disneyplus, check out that episode, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from episode 7 of the Acolyte series, it's Jon Jon Rico.
Hello.
Hello.
What's going on?
Not too much. We got an interesting. We got your part B.
We got the part B.
We got your part B. Yeah. I mean, a lot happened. We got a couple of questions answered. I have more questions. I'll get into those and predictions. I have a lot. And as you were saying, I mean, we're almost out. We're almost out of episodes, so we got some explaining.
One more done. Yeah.
Yeah. We got a lot of explaining to do. Episode 8. But I mean, getting right into it, because the way my brain works, we did finally officially answer the question. Who started the fire? The answer is May started the fire, and all I could think of was The Office when the temp at the time, Ryan, started a fire in the break room microwave, and hearing Dwight sing
Ryan started the fire.
But I mean, yeah, I had to do it. I immediately started hearing Dwight singing Ryan started the fire, but just singing May really did start the fire, just kind of like filling in different lyrics. Yeah, I did that. That's what I did with my spare time after watching this episode. But yeah, I mean, we did get some questions answered, and as I was kind of saying to you before we even started recording, everybody is muddy in this situation. Like, there is no one coming out of this like spotless. Like, the more like questions that get answered, the more we just find out like everybody's kind of in the wrong. Like, whether they're partly in the wrong or fully in the wrong, everybody in these situations are in the wrong. Like, type of thing. So
yeah, a lot of consequences of choices here for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of said to you, and that's what I was trying to remember. What I said was, it was a series of unfortunate events, kind of thing. Like, it was like, if that hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened. If that hadn't happened at that exact time, this wouldn't have happened. Like, you know what I mean? It was just kind of like, oh shit, is this like a Final Destination movie? Like, everything had to line up right for all of the mistakes to happen in that particular event, like series of events type of thing. Before I get too far, Rico, what were some of your instant reactions for episode 7?
Yeah. Well, first of all, this is a big week for witches, man, especially for Disney witches, because we got like this big witch centric episode here in this here when we got to see them do some creepy witch shit. And then of course we got the Agatha trailer earlier this week too. So it was like my witch brain was going off here, just got me. Okay, I'm kind of in like the mood to get some witch content. I just seen the Agatha trailer, and then of course I get this episode a couple days later, so it kind of worked out. And it was okay.
I mean, it's all right.
I wish you could have loved it more, but man, definitely like shit went down in like this, part B, I say, to the Brendock story, which is essentially just like the same story, but from the Jedi's perspective. Yep. And we get to see a lot of the same scenes, of course, from episode 3, but we get to see them from the point of view of the Jedi and kind of just seeing how they perceive those particular moments, which I actually do think is interesting, because one of my favorite book series in the Star Wars world is actually, they're called From a Certain Point of View, which is like a collection of little stories from like little side characters within the movies. Like, each book represents one of the original trilogy movies. So like, there's a whole small story in there about like the trash compactor monster that lives inside the original movie, and you get to learn about like how that monster even got there in the first place, and it's actually like force sensitive and stuff like that. Yeah. So there's actually it adds some really cool context that when you watch like the original trilogy again, So again, like the whole idea, and it's a famous quote from Obi-Wan, of course, I think from Return of the Jedi, I believe, when Luke confronts him and goes, you know, what Yoda did tell you was true from a certain point of view, essentially. So that line has always resonated through Star Wars. So seeing moments like this from different characters' perspectives does always remind me of that certain title there, that quote, of course, because you know the way you perceive certain events in Star Wars all really relates to the certain point of view, right? I also think about the things like Game of Thrones too, where you're getting chapters from character point of view, so you're getting their interpretation of those events. So I'm kind of relating it to the kind of those kind of things. But yeah, we see some pretty crazy stuff as far as like the witches taking over people's minds and stuff like that, which is really cool. But and again, and of course, a pretty cool fight scene at the end of the day too. But there was also some pretty odd choices, some odd acting choices I thought in this episode that made it a little bit daunting. And I find myself like feeling that we got too much of repetition from stuff from episode 3. Like it didn't leave the answers that we got from the questions that episode gave us like very gratifying results, I felt like. So a little bit of yes, a little bit of no. So but overall I thought it was an okay experience.
Yeah. I mean, look, the more that we can kind of put in perspective the events that happened that we saw in episode 3 is interesting. Yeah, there are aspects of this episode that I really did enjoy seeing, you know, that perspective side. And I mean, we did get, you know, they really weren't there looking for the Coven of Witches. Like that was a true answer. Like now we're kind of figuring out what's true and what was not true.
Yeah, not directly. It ended
Right.
up being what they were looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
But they if you know May and Osha hadn't been out, things could have gone a little differently. Like I said, series of unfortunate events. Like just things had to happen the exact way they happened to create the situation of this episode. And yeah, it's just it's like series.
The episode's called Choice too, and it's all about choices that people make, and that's the whole underlying theme of this episode. Which you know, the episode titles have usually been like kind of like a like 2 episodes will usually have like episodes or titles that are like there was day and then there was night when you had the stuff that was on Kofar. And if you look back to the episode for episode 3, that was called Destiny. So if you put those 2 titles together, it's Destiny versus Choice. And I think it's a really cool way that they kind of analyze those themes within, especially when it comes to May and Nosha's story, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also now I want to go back and read the book that you were just talking about because I think that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, there's 3 of them I think so far.
Nice.
So yeah, that's really fun.
Yeah, I want to check that out. But before I check that book or those books out, you want to get you some big takeaways?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick off big takeaways?
Okay, so really, I know I got my Ricky Ricardo had Soul. You got some explaining to do, man, because he makes some. Speaking of choices, he makes a couple big choices here in this episode that have some big ramifications for some character motivations going forward, especially May, particularly because she gets to witness him straight up just, you know, absolutely kill Mother Anastasia, which I thought was a pretty wild choice. Like when she starts to turn into the mist and like his immediate reaction is like, I gotta stab her. Like, yeah.
I'm wondering if he even thought that was gonna work though. Like,
true. Yeah, I guess
I mean?
you know, if it, you know, it doesn't hurt to, I guess it does hurt to try in a sense, but yeah, like, you know, I gotta try to do it if I can, because who knows what she's gonna do with this power that she has.
Right.
But yeah, it's just like it seems like a pretty hasty decision on his end, and then of course he kind of realized at the end, because that's when she tells him like she was going to go with you, we were going to let her go, and it all leads back to like what we're talking about with choices, and even like the conflict between him and Andara leading up to the episode, because it's this whole thing like I want to go and help her out, but like you know, like we don't have that choice, like that's got to be their choice and stuff like that, and the fact that he kind of took things into his own hands kind of led things to kind of escalate the way they did. So but at the end of the day, who knows what event led to like what eventual consequence, right? So I pretty much had to decide with Indara, and this one I think she was kind of like the level head. But she's just kind of like being the most like Jedi of all of them. Like everyone else is kind of acting pretty emotionally. Torben wants to go home. Soul wants to help out this little girl and like all these things. And then she's just kind of like, no, we gotta do exactly like what the protocol is. So and if they probably had stuck to that protocol, things could have probably turned out differently. So yeah, I think it was a very interesting kind of lesson just to see this kind of dynamic between other Jedi, especially Jedi who respect each other the way that Soul and Andara do, because I do like the level of respect those two have for each other.
Yeah, and I definitely first off have to say, like, I second your thought. I think Andara, was handling the situation the smartest way. Like,
Yeah, diplomatic.
first off, let's wait for the council to decide what we can do. Let's not make any choices on our own. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she was kind of doing exactly like you said, protocol. Like, let's follow protocol. Let's do this. Blah blah blah. Like, they said no. That's fine. That's it. We're done. Like, wash your hands clean. Like, but yeah, I mean, just like I've been saying, and you've been saying, like, all of the choices that were made were the series of events that led to the outcome type of thing. Like, if, like I was saying to you, if Torben hadn't like gone and said, we got to get those girls, and like took off on a speeder thing,
Yeah,
then
they're
Soul
virgins. We to go. Like it's
Yeah.
what we came for. Yeah.
Soul wouldn't have gone after him, and maybe they would have waited for the next day, and then the mother would have like said, like, this is Osha's decision, and we're gonna let her go with you. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if things hadn't happened the exact way they happened, this conflict would have turned out very. Now, you can also argue that Coral would have never let that happen. So she might have killed the mother. She might have killed, like, you know what I mean? Stolen the girls and
Yeah,
ran, like, anything, because she was immediately getting the rest of the coven, like,
Oh yeah,
they're coming
she's
to
like, I want
attack.
to fight immediately.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't want to like be diplomatic with these people at all.
Right, exactly. So, like, I mean, she was gearing up for that. So, like, I'm still interested to kind of see what happens to her in post, because we don't really see her outcome. We see the coven is dead. We know that the mother was killed by Soul. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't really see what happens to her. Just like we don't see exactly what happens to May and why she survives or how she survives, I guess. So there's still a lot of questions from there that I'll get into a little bit more with predictions, stuff like that. But the situation with Soul in this episode in particular kind of was really reminiscent with Qui-Gon Jinn to me, with the episode 1, like the prequel series, where Obi-Wan kind of had the level head and kept going, like, he's too, like, Anakin's too old, like, we should not be doing this, like, the council is like against it, like, you know what I mean? Like, he was kind of trying to be like kind of more of the level head, and Qui-Gon was like, nope, we gotta train him, he's gonna, like, he's the one we're looking for, like, you know what I mean? And he kept pushing it, and then what do we get? We get Qui-Gon dying, number one, but we also get Darth Vader at the end of the day, because Qui-Gon gets killed, and things progress on that exact series of unfortunate events that leads Anakin to the dark side, and everything happens, type of thing. So you almost want to say, like, this is kind of Star Wars Final Destination. I feel like it's just kind of events have to happen exactly how they have to happen. Otherwise, the big events don't happen that way. But that it just slightly reminded me of that, because Soul was so determined that Osha has to be like brought back to like the council, and has to be a Jedi, and he has to save her, and he has to like make her his Padawan. Like, it just seemed very bound and determined immediately, type of thing. And that just, for me, made me feel a little bit more like Qui-Gon Jinn. Like, I was just getting a little vibe from that. But
yeah, I think that relation has kind of been there from the beginning, especially because when you look at the fact that how much of they relate the twins to Anakin, as far as like them being Force created too, which is another thing that Anakin goes back to. There, and it's very, that I think that homage between those two is very, very good. And yeah, and there, I can't think of another. There's only a few Jedi who kind of began their training at such an older age. So I think that's very interesting. Another thing is too, because we talk about, like, Torben's actions possibly being like a catalyst for what happens, but that probably also couldn't have happened if Mother Anastasia hadn't gotten into his head and freaked him the hell out too. So he was probably so shook that he's like, no, I just want to get out of here. Like, I don't want to be near the damn witches anymore. Like, get this virgin to get the hell out of here. Like, that could have been like his huge motivation as well. So yeah, it's very interesting how, like, so again, Mother Anastasia kind of being that one to be hostile in a mental way too, which is kind of even more scary, because that scene itself was, I think it was pretty cool. I like seeing them going like in a more like a spooky element. And I even like the fact that they acknowledge the Night Sisters, like they're not Night Sisters, but they bring up the idea, are they Night Sisters? Like, no, they're not Night Sisters. So I even like the idea that they just kind of shut that door, just so that people can be like, well, what about the Night Sisters? It's like, well, no, they mentioned that idea, they're not there.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, like I said, the more information we find out, the more we find out that everybody's hands are muddy in this situation. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a very tangled, awful situation all around type of thing.
For sure.
Even decent people are doing bad things. There's no person that's not doing something wrong. Because even, I mean, we have Indara, who's like, once they're on the ship, she's like, we're not going to tell them exactly what happened. So even she gets her hands dirty.
Yeah, it's kind of the beginnings of a little bit of a cover up. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah. Do you want to get to some predictions?
Yeah, sure do.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna give predictions only because I just have more questions. It's just every time we get like some like peer behind the curtain, I feel like we just get more questions. I even from this episode, I have more questions. It's like, you know, how did May survive the fall? Which look, I'm leaning towards, you know, Coral has something to do with that and getting her out and getting her off the planet. I have a feeling something's with that. But another big question is, how did all of the other witches die? Because we see like back and forth when, you know, we have the Jedi battle, which Jedi and Jedi violence. It was a very cool scene. It was very interesting, but we see them kind of interacting and I guess like helping that process to control the Wookiee Jedi, but it's still like, were they all that connected that like when the connection was severed, all of them died, or are we still missing pieces of that story? Did Coral slaughter everyone to kind of say like the Jedi did this, they're horrible, like you know what I mean? Like who did that? Like to them, like it's just very interesting to me, like that. How this situation keeps going and keeps giving more questions when it gives like small answers type of thing.
Yeah, and if it's intending to do that or if it's just not because it wasn't clearly conveyed.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, if somebody out there that's watching this kind of took that a different way, I'm totally open to suggestion. I'd love somebody to help fill in some blanks and stuff if I missed something, for sure, because I don't understand. I feel like I have a lot of questions, especially a lot of questions going into the final episode of the season, type of thing. I don't know. I mean, unless we're getting like a 2-hour long episode, there's a lot of questions, and I have no idea how this story is going to wrap up.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if we're even going to revisit like these past scenes. I don't know how much of the flashbacks are going to factor into the finale, because it seems like we'll just go, we build up into the current story a couple episodes, and then we go back for a flashback, and then we go back to the story like with like a little bit of context of what happened when they were kids, but like it hasn't really done too much as far as like overall adding to the bigger story that's happening right now between Chimera and the twins. It seems like it just seems like, especially when we leave off with like that's just such a cool tease of what each character was kind of about to like do with their character arc.
Right.
I just feel like they just kind of like, I'm still left hanging after what happened from that last week's episode, right?
Yeah.
But for me, yeah, some of the stuff that I think we've gone over already. But what happened to Mother Coral during that whole battle? Because she also does the whole mist trick. And I, you know, she was also kind of like my other Sith theory out there, and I almost have a feeling I'm gonna be 2 for 2 when it comes to both of these characters being involved with each other somehow. But man, I gotta talk about Mother Coral here, because there's a couple actors in this show that I've had trouble kind of getting behind. One is the Vernestra actress, just because of what I expect from the character. But just kind of seems overall a little bit wooden to me. But man, Mother Coral just kind of it's like the complete opposite. She takes it up to like 11 with like her you know, the yelling, and I, you know, credit to the actress. She's trying her hardest, and these are the takes that they just had to go with. But to me, I can't get behind the intimidating screaming. It just feels a little bit too like angry teen almost to me. Like even like when she's just yelling at Soul to fight her, I'm like, oh no, you can just like fight at him and just be aggressive. It could be just as conveying. Like you're from Datham. I think she's a Zabrak. So yeah, just channel some of that Maul energy, you know. But yeah, I gotta imagine we'll see her reunite with May at some point, because we at the end of episode 3 we have May. We know she survived the fall, of course.
Right.
but we get to see young May after the fall and kind of just be by herself. But we don't really get that follow up. We don't even get a follow up to that in this episode, which I'm really surprised that we don't. So I just don't know what. I imagine this finale is going to be pretty big. I hope so. I like because we get some pretty short episodes the season. I hope we're getting a solid like maybe 50 to 60-minute episode for a finale that might include a couple of flashback moments just to give that final context that we need going into that final payoff moment that we're going into. But yeah, I just don't know how we're gonna wrap this up. Like I don't know where we're gonna build off of here from episode 6 that is like the big finale moment. So like I guess like we're gonna get the confrontation between Soul and May, I guess, and but I feel like we still need more development between Osha and Chimera as well. So there's like I feel like this could have been like almost another 1 or 2 episodes for me if we were gonna add so much of the story, or we're gonna add this part of the story right here in this part of the season, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like if this was a 9 episode thing where we could have like maybe a 2-part finale, or a 10 episode thing where we could kind of have a little bit of a slower burn for this episode and then get back to like what's happening right before we get to the finale event and what's going to lead up to the finale. Yeah, I'm right with you. I really don't know what to expect next because, and maybe it's because I got so used to kind of the format of the Bad Batch seasons where like, leading up to the finale, something happens and the finale is going to be this conflict resolved, like something big is going to happen.
Yeah, it was one complete story. It feels like we're juggling a lot of different stories here, and then we're just kind of like, okay, we'll get to that part later.
There is no later.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, come on, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I mean, that's one of the biggest questions we have is kind of where we're picking back up and what we're going to lead to kind of have any kind of resolution, because we got to have a resolution whether they're expecting to have a season 2 or not. Like we still need something that makes the finale feel like a finale, whether it's a series finale or a season 1 finale. Like we still need something to feel like I
need some closure somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like there's no, I don't feel like, just like you said, I don't feel like we're leading to any big conflict right now. Like we have the kind of the 2 sides that have now been drawn, and we have like things that need to happen on both sides, but it's just like, there's not something big yet. But maybe we get an hour-long finale, and we get a lot of questions answered. We have a couple of flashbacks, and we do have something that leads to a oh shit moment that then goes to be continued, and then we get kind of hyped for a season 2 or something like that. Like that's a potential. Like I'm not putting that out of the realm of possibility, but I need to see it to believe it, type of thing. Like, I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure they're gonna leave some stuff open-ended, just because I think every show's just kind of done that on their season 1s so far. Yeah. Just but whether we're gonna see a follow-up to those on screen could remain to be seen. But it's also one of those things where we could be like, if we don't do it on screen, we can do it in another medium too, which is always kind of the fun of doing something in a world like this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's always comics, there's books, there's
games,
games too. Yeah. All right. But as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 7? And more importantly, what do you think is going to happen for the season 1 finale? Like, what events are we leading to? What is happening? And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.